Hey everyone, it's Anthony Allen Ramos. All right, have you seen Pamela, A Love Story yet? Well, I've seen it twice, and the world is watching it over and over again. It's a big hit, and I'm so excited to be chatting with the director, Ryan White, right now. Ryan, how's it going? It's been a whirlwind. The world has seen it, and they're loving this film.
Yeah, I mean, I knew Pamela Anderson was famous, but I don't think I was expecting this level of viewership.
Yeah.
I think there's just something about her. If I could define it, I'm sure I could bottle it up and sell it for a lot of money. I don't think anyone really knows what that is, but the past week or whatever since the film has come out has definitely proved there's something about her that people just want more and more of.
So let's define it, because I was thinking, so I remember 20 years ago, literally to this month, there was an FHM magazine cover on my wall of Pamela Anderson and other Baywatch beauties, or whatever we will call them. And obviously I'm a gay man, but even then I was like, there is something about Pamela Anderson that like, I just love. And I feel like, we got, the choreographer who talks about that kind of in that from Chicago when she's in this documentary. What is it that you think about Pamela Anderson that especially LGBTQ people kind of gravitate, but especially I think, her gay men following is really strong too?
And it's especially, I mean, I have no scientific data to back this up. I'm going off of Instagram responses I'm getting right now, but I think it's also gay men of a certain age. So I'm born in 1981, which I kind of believe is like the perfect target for Pamela Anderson, because I'm a teenager and coming of age in the 90s at like the height of her fame. Okay, so if we're the same age, it's a pre-internet, or it's a very early internet era. It's definitely pre-social media, and so she was our Marilyn Monroe, or she was our Kardashian, or whoever the kids it girl is this day. She was that for our generation. And she dominated everything because there just wasn't the proliferation of media back then in the way that there is now. I think there's something too about that larger than life figure that she is, the over the topness, especially Pamela in the 90s had, which is quite ironic knowing her now, or what we tried to do in our film, which is really like strip that away, aesthetically, but also personality wise, and just be very raw. But I think that also appeals to a gay audience in a lot of ways. So I think she kind of has those two different qualities, that rawness, but also the potential to go completely over the top that appeal to a lot of gay men.
Did you ever think, because I was like, I think I'm attracted to Pamela Anderson. I think I'm in love with her, but then I realized I was like more into all of the things that make Pamela Anderson in the 90s. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because we inherited so much of her archival stuff, and you go back and you look at that, and it is like one of the most beautiful people ever. It still is, I would say. And I think it had to do with that, but I think it also had to do with the rebel that was in her. She didn't play by the rules. She still doesn't. And that was difficult as a director, but I learned to love it, where she just never wants to be directed. Every day she wants to be a new day, which as a total free spirit, and so that makes her completely unpredictable. But I think when you're looking back at the 90s, that unpredictability, that idea of like who's she gonna be with or what she's gonna do next was really exciting to a pop culture audience.
One of the things that I feel like I knew and understood but didn't fully understand until I watched this documentary really was how, the tape that got released, how she really felt like it really hindered her career, and it really changed the kind of direction of what she was gonna do. And I think that partially with the connection to LGBT people kind of feeling misunderstood, and like that's a similar theme. Did you find, that I think that she felt like people thought they had this idea of what she was, and she was like, that's really not who I am. And then she even said, I even kind of like fed into this image of who I was supposed to be myself, and then, obviously got through that.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things that really drew me to making this film. I don't typically pursue like mega celebrity docs. It's not really my interest as a filmmaker. And with Pamela, even though I loved her as a teenager, but I didn't thought a lot about her over the last 20 years. And so my image of Pamela came with a lot of preconceived notions. And a lot of them were probably unfair. And we started making this doc a few years ago, so it was well before Pam and Tommy was even a thing. Like that television show we didn't know about. So I can't even remember, to be honest, but I think I just assumed when I first met her, I remembered the stolen tape, but I think I just assumed it was a purposefully leaked sex tape. I don't think I knew that background in any way. And Pamela had a memoir that came out the same day as my documentary, and so she's been writing that for years and years, all herself. And she let me read a manuscript of it. And once I read the manuscript, that's what really sold me on making the documentary. And it really unraveled a lot of those preconceived notions, including about the sex tape, not just about that, about everything in her life, but especially about the stolen tape. And you and I are of that generation that kind of straddled both, like the pre-internet era and what happened to Pamela, a theft, a robbery of her sexual privacy. And then what we've seen later with many stars who either questionably or definitely released sex tapes on purpose, and it made celebrities out of those people. And so it was very important, and Netflix was very conscious of this when we were editing the film, of speaking to a younger audience that might not either know who Pamela is or definitely not have lived through her stolen tape, to show an audience, a younger audience, how that could have harmed a reputation or a celebrity in a pre-internet era. And Pamela was really good at like kind of holding the audience's hand and walking them through that. I think, at least the way I'm seeing the responses to it, especially from young women, at really getting a sense of what she went through and being surprised by what she went through. I think Pamela was really patient with me in making sure we walked the audience through that in a very careful way that could reshape that lens of the time that she went through this.
Thank you for sharing that. And I was thinking, like, I remember at the premiere, I was very lucky to get to go. Great event, Netflix, by the way, and for you. And I loved how you said that, like, when this all started, you jumped on a Zoom with Pamela Anderson, and she wanted to know all about, like, your mom and, like, your family and all of that. Did you get a chance to talk to her about kind of growing up, finding yourself, coming out, and kind of, just your journey as a gay man?
Yeah, I mean, a big part of my job, I think, at least some of my colleagues would probably disagree, is spending time with people off camera. And so I find that that's often, it's obviously not material for your documentary, but I often find that that's where the foundation is based. And so I'm always trying to spend a lot of time with my subjects, and that's not to let them get to know me. I never offer anything of myself unless they want to know. But Pamela's a very curious person. She's a very sensitive person, and I kind of think the subtext, which I don't think you're allowed to say out loud anymore when you're hiring people, because I think you can't tokenize them. But I kind of think the subtext when they were looking for me is, I think they were kind of looking for a gay man. And once her son, Brandon, found me and I had lunch with him, he kept saying, like, you and my mom are going to get along. Like, because I was showing my wariness of, like, oh, I don't really make celeb docs. And he said, like, please just get on a phone or Zoom with my mom. And so I think the subtext of that, he's like, I finally found a gay man who's going to get along with my mom's personality well. And he was right. From the moment I met Pamela, we had a rapport. And the last 2 years have been like that. Like, she's just very interested in everyone's lives. And, she's her whole life been surrounded. Her inner circle is very, very small. It's basically her family and a small circle of friends, and they're almost all gay. And so I think she finds a safety with LGBTQ people that maybe she hasn't with others in the past. And I felt like that helped me. And she would ask about those experiences and was very sensitive to them. And so I think it was a part of the building blocks of making this doc.
You know, you bring, I mean, and I think that's so interesting because I can imagine how, if the filmmaker was a straight man or even a woman, how I think the level of openness, and because, you know, after years of being judged and, you know, perceived to be someone that she wasn't, I think it would have been a completely different outcome, because she probably wouldn't have had that level of comfortability and like you said, I think that she feels like that connection to the community and was able to open up and be, you know, as authentic as she could be.
I do. I think she definitely feels a comfort level with the LGBTQ community that she doesn't necessarily with everybody else. You know, I'm sure there were a million different directors that could have made this film and made it in different ways and probably taken much more unique angles, or maybe not more unique, but their own unique angles. And I think that's one of the fun parts about documentary filmmaking and the marriage, so to speak, of a subject and a director is the substance of the film or the tone of the film. I believe it comes out of that alchemy between subject and filmmaker, and that's very singular to that relationship. And for Pamela, you know, I would love to sit here and claim, you know, that my listening ear and my demeanor is what, you know, and I spent years winning over her trust, you know, using my charming personality, but it would be untrue. Like she is a very trusting person by nature, which is one of the things that drew me to her. Like, how strange for someone who's been burned so much, or is that famous, that they are so open. But it kind of has two sides, because she doesn't let people in that inner circle easily. You know, she has a very small orbit around her. She doesn't want a lot of people around her. But once you're in, she's all in. And I was lucky because I was sanctioned by her son. Her son liked me and was presenting me to her. And she really trusts her two sons more than anyone in the world. And the fact that Brandon was saying, like, Mom, I think this is the guy, made her, we didn't have to start from square one. We started from a very trusting place from the moment she met me.
Well, listen, I am so happy that you were the one to get to tell the story, and you're, you know, part of that inner circle. I think it's, you know, it's so interesting, and I loved it. Like I said, I watched it twice. I know the world is, you know, watching it. So big congrats to you, and I can't wait to see what your next project is. But continue to enjoy this one for now. And just a reminder, everyone, if you haven't seen it yet, Pamela, A Love Story is available right now to stream on Netflix.